Today, we will be diving into reprogramming your inner saboteur to level up your business, especially money mindset. Now, you talk a lot about money mindset manifestation. Now, I'd love to kind of hear more about you and where you're from and, how you decided to, step into this incredible space.
Oh my gosh. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting. Like we were just talking about, we're literally on opposite sides of the world. So if you can't tell from my beautiful accent, my name is Jaimee. I am from Australia. I actually live in far North Queensland. So right up kind of like not fully up the tip of Australia, but a little bit further down in what we call a city, but it's really not. It's kind of like a large town. So really fun to be able to connect with people from all over the world from such a small place. But my story is actually really interesting. So a lot of people don't know this. I'm actually a pharmacist, and that's how I got into the online world of business. So I was managing pharmacies and I started studying integrative nutrition and also some functional medicine, because at that stage I was really set up to actually go in and buy my own pharmacy with some other pharmacists. And I was really thinking, like, how can we do things differently? Like every other pharmacy does the same things, sells the same stuff. Like, how can we do things differently? And I was looking for new ways to bring different services. I was really into health, really into getting to the root cause of health rather than just, giving people medications and sending them on their way, which is what our traditional healthcare system kind of does. And that was actually how I was introduced to this entire online world of business, because before that, I didn't even know it existed. I saw like influencers online and people who sold like fitness programs and things like that, but I didn't realize that it extended beyond that. So I got right into the whole health stuff, and then I started to have my own health issues and become really burnt out working in my career, and started thinking like there has to be a better way. And this kind of goes in two different directions here, because number one, obviously there has to be a better way. And I started searching for different ways to make money and to make a living and to build the business that, like, I always knew I wanted to be in business. That's how I got to being a pharmacist manager, how I got to the stage of I'm about to buy into a pharmacy. But I wanted it for the freedom. And I wasn't getting the freedom from my career at that point. I was actually so stressed and burnt out. I had a whole heap of health issues and things going on. And so that led to me looking for something else. But at the same time, it started like the whole looking for the root cause had me diving down rabbit holes, which is just who I am. I'm the person who wants to like dive deep into things. And I started realizing that health was so much more than just like the food and the supplements and moving your body, and how much of it actually started in the brain. And so that's how I actually got into learning about the brain and about mindset. And that then took a dive off in the whole direction that you see now, where I really, really specialize with working with women in business who are stressed, who are run down, who are burnt out, who are struggling every day coming up against themselves, because this isn't something that is, considered normal to us, right? This whole world is never existed. And so it's really an internal battle, and we can move through that by literally rewiring our brain.
Yeah, that is
It's
absolutely
magic.
incredible. I love your business journey and like your experiences. It's really interesting like having conversations with other female founders, because it's like we all started out in such a different place. Like, of course, we have like a lot of similarities in terms of, finding our, path, but it's really fascinating. So I really love that for you. And it's really true. Like, I feel like when it comes to even our energy reserves, like a huge percentage of our energy, the calories that we use on a daily basis just goes straight to our brain. And again, like, emotions, everything, like we really, it's just so subconscious for us. And so, something that you talk a lot about is like money mindset, right? As business owners, I feel like when we sign up to be a business owner as a female founder, we're signing up for so many different things, such as like, you know, creating contents, right? Of like showing up and marketing. We have like so many different hats. And so stepping on a business journey is almost like stepping on the longest like personal journey, like development journey ever. And we come to realize a lot about ourselves. We come to, learn a lot about our behaviors. And so part of business is generating revenue. Part of business is growth, expansion, and scaling. And so, what is something that you commonly find when working with your clients or like even in the online space in general that women typically face when it comes to money mindset and manifestation?
Mm. I feel like when you embark on your journey as a business owner, you don't realize that it's also an incredible like healing journey. And I'm always really cautious when I use that word because I just find people have kind of like run with it and made it something that it's not on social media. But it really is an incredible healing journey. And it starts to bring up all of these stories and these beliefs and these things, especially around money, that you didn't even know you had, right? Because it's so buried in our subconscious, all of like the experiences that we've had, the thoughts that have been like passed down to us, the traumas and the woundings that have been passed down to us from generations before us that lived a completely different life. And so money is one of the biggest things that I see people struggle with. But what I think is really interesting is people love to work on their money mindset and they then miss like working on the other things, and they're all intertwined. It's not like, oh, I'll just work on my money mindset and then I'll get over my self-sabotage. That's kind of like one pillar, and then there's so much more behind it. But when it comes to money, the biggest thing is like worthiness. And on the surface, because I know that that sounds like really, oh, duh, of course, like women just wouldn't feel worthy to ask for the money that they're worth. On the surface, that's not always what it looks like. On the surface, it looks like, like really overthinking your prices. Maybe you're not charging properly for the things, like you're really undercharging, underselling yourself, undervaluing yourself. Before you make a decision on a price, you're like looking at everyone else in your niche and trying to figure out where your price should sit and all of those things. And then it comes to really over delivering and giving too much. And while I definitely think like we're in an era at the moment in online business of really needing to do more for people and deliver more value, that doesn't mean coming in and just being like, here's everything that I know about this thing to try and prove that you're worthy of what you charged. And so if we dove into all of these patterns, we would see that underneath there is a very deep underlying worthiness issue, which is to be expected. We're women who have been suppressed for generations upon generations upon generations. We've only been allowed to make our own money in like the last maybe 100 years, if we're lucky, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much trauma and wounding and underlying beliefs that we're not even consciously aware of that comes because of the collective history of women.
Wow, that is so fascinating. And even when we look at like the dynamic between like our mothers and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers, like even in the past like couple generations, like so much has changed in terms of being in a career, right? Like even let alone owning a business, let alone like managing our own money.
Yeah.
And it's just really insane to think that like a couple generations ago, it was like a whole 180. And so how do you know like to a certain point where you feel like you have a difficult relationship when it comes to money, or like how do we know when we are facing these challenges or they are starting to like become debilitating when it comes to your business?
I personally believe that this work all women need to do because of our history, because of the collective history. But if you're like really in a particular place where you're like, I'm not really sure if I have money things or not, something that I always say is your body remembers things that your mind does not. And so often we think that we're all good with things because we don't have the reoccurring thoughts. Like we're not sitting there, scared to pay a bill. But what I
Yeah.
want you to notice instead is how it feels in your body. You know, that lump
Mm.
that you get in your throat before you go to speak about something, the
Yeah.
knots that you get in your stomach when you're like, oh, my revenue has dropped this month. And straight away, your brain, because this is how we've been conditioned by social media, your brain's like, no, no, like, I'm all good. I'm all good. I feel good. Like, I'm not in scarcity. I'm all good. Money, this is just what happens in business. You know, business is ups and downs. That's your brain trying to just overcompensate. You need to listen to your body. That knot is
Mm.
a sign that your body is feeling stressed, and it's feeling stressed because of your income dip. And that's okay. As soon
Yeah.
as we start to address these things and we recognize them, we can actually go in and be like, okay, I've got a bit of an attachment with my money. I am making my income dip mean something about me. What do I need to do here? Like, what do I need to clean up?
So it's truly just deeper reflection and being really self-aware, right? With like not only
Really
what you're
self-aware.
thinking, yeah, but how you're feeling and
Mhm.
almost like
Yeah,
your intuition. And again, I feel like when you are so self-aware, time after time again, when this repeats, it's almost like you can predict it for yourself, right?
1000%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can get to the point where you're like, well, I'm no longer choosing to feel that way and to make these, you know, external things mean absolutely anything about me, because they don't, right? They
Mm-hmm.
absolutely don't. And so we can get to this stage when we do the work, when we look deeper at the beliefs and the thoughts and like the experiences, the memories that are actually triggering these feelings, because they don't come out of nowhere. You're not stressed about your income dip and making it mean something about you for no reason. There is something in your subconscious mind that has been activated. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
filtering now all these beliefs and thoughts and emotions through your body. And that is what's causing that knot in the stomach. So when we go back and we address the memories and the beliefs and the conditioning, the generational traumas, all of that sort of stuff, we can actually just stop this pattern completely. Like, or
Mm.
you'll notice it a little bit and you'll be like, oh, is that back again? Is it
Yeah.
though? And you'll feel it shift through your body, and then you're good to go.
Wow, that's incredible. Like you're literally evolving in terms of like your mindset around money,
Literally.
around generating
Yeah.
revenue. And so once we kind of get over that hurdle or like kind of get over that deeper work that we needed to do, and again, of course, it takes time and it takes like commitment and like, repetition. But once we kind of are at a place where we feel like, do you know what? My money mindset is good. I feel like I'm all good. I feel like I'm not in panic mode or having to overcompensate or, almost like fake it till you make it and putting these blinders on when we kind of face these like emotions. When we're at that stage where we're ready to move on, what are some things that we can do or start implementing in our business or like everyday life in order to reach for higher potential, higher revenue within our business in terms of mindset and energy?
I love this question because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have this misconception that in order to manifest and up level and quantum leap and collapse time and all of the things, it's like this whole list of stuff that you have to do. But I actually
Mm,
don't believe that. I believe that manifestation, quantum leaping, like all of that stuff is actually a choice, and it's a way of living your life. It's a way
mm-hmm.
of being tapped into yourself. And so I say prioritize that above everything else. And I don't see enough, especially female founders and female entrepreneurs. You know, you're building an empire, but everything has become about your business. I see women who
Mm,
are only investing in their self when they can see the return on investment in their business, but you are the driving force behind your business. And so when you focus on you, your growth, your evolution, like making sure that your body is looked after and taken care of, and you're building your relationship to yourself, not just everyone around you, that is when you'll really see the quantum leaps and the time collapse, if you will, because
I love that.
you're your business's most important asset. Like
Hmm.
you. I
Yeah.
hate when I see people who are like, I saw a post last night and it was this woman celebrating an incredible deal. She's just from TikTok. I don't actually know who she is. She's created this series on TikTok and actually had someone reach out that they want to do a TV segment on her. And she's like,
Wow.
this is the power of manifestation.
Yeah.
No, girlfriend, this is the power of you. Like, you did this. We
Yes.
need to stop giving our power away to all of these things.
I feel like a common misconception when it comes to manifestation, and this is, I feel like this is a fairly new term in the online space in like this generation, but also like I feel like there's this misconception that manifestation is like wishing or dreaming and it'll happen, right? And I feel like there's so much that goes into it. And something that I preach a lot is like, how do you envision yourself as like that entrepreneur, like your higher version of yourself? But like, how's she moving? Like, what is she doing? Like, what are her habits looking like? Like, what is her business reality, her current reality? And like, what are you doing right now to start moving in that way? And again, it doesn't need to be something that's so far fetched of like envisioning yourself in 10 years, but also like a month down the line, 6 months down the line, like a year down the line, and starting to move that way. And I feel like when you make things a lot more easier for you to like start shifting your habits, you're making it easier for yourself to, actually envision that and have that as your current reality. You almost like mold into that version of yourself, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
absolutely. And the thing that's really important with that too is when you start to do those things, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to be met with a lot of resistance. And
Mm-hmm.
that is normal. I think there is a lot of people who get resistance and misalignment really mixed up. And it's understandable because sometimes in the body they can feel really similar, but this is where the self-awareness piece is really important because you will know if you're self-sabotaging versus if you're actually out of alignment. Like, out of alignment
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel so completely out of whack, out of touch with everything, and you're like so confused with what's going on. Whereas if you're in resistance and you're self-sabotaging, you can just feel it. Like, you know that there's no reason that you shouldn't want to do the thing, but you just
Mm-hmm.
can't bring yourself to do it. And so whenever you do these like practices of, okay, so I want to paint out my picture of who that entrepreneur is for me, which I love,
Mm-hmm.
and you start to like list out the habits and how she moves and how she walks and how she shows up, you're going to be met with so much resistance to embodying that and to doing those things because your brain is like, oh my God, red flag, like this is new, this feels like a lot. And this is
Yeah.
where I think people miss the mark of you really need to address the underlying beliefs associated with that to enable you to fully embody that new identity. I see so
Mm-hmm.
many people go straight for the habits and they're like, okay, well, my that entrepreneur identity, that version of me, she starts every day journaling and she meditates and then she goes for like a 30-minute walk and then she does
Yeah.
this and then she does that. And it starts with all the things. And what happens is like that's cool for a few days. And then all of a sudden it starts to feel hard because your inner saboteur is like, hang on a minute, like, what are we doing? We're not this person. We're not good enough to be doing this. If we address those things, like as we're going along the journey of embodying this new identity, that's where the time collapse happens. That's where all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden that like it no longer becomes a conscious effort to show up as that entrepreneur. You collapse time and you are that entrepreneur. And
Wow.
that's what I love to work with women on. Like it's so much more
Yes.
simple when we address the underlying beliefs instead of going straight for the habits.
That's really interesting. I remember like towards the end of 2023, I was on a client call with one of my coaching clients and I remember, asking her like how like what is 2024 going to look like for you? Like how are you feeling? And I remember her saying like I am going to go on YouTube. I'm going to look up like successful habits of, seven-figure entrepreneur and like I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to journal, I'm going to do a cold shower, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, whoa, 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 slow down for a second. Is this
Up the
truly what
brakes.
you want? Is this truly what you
Yes.
want to do? Or is this something that you've been ingrained or you think that you need to do to become a successful entrepreneur? And I feel like almost in that moment, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure through non-self-reflection, right? And so
Mm.
a lot of times, like hearing what you're saying, a lot of female founders struggle with self-sabotage. And I'm really curious to hear and see what that typically looks like with the clients that you've worked with, like with people you've connected with. Like, what does self-sabotage as a female founder typically look like day to day?
Do you know what? It is so sneaky. Like that, what
Yeah.
you've just described right there can very much be self-sabotage because we think we need to go and do all of these things in order to have that like successful persona. And really, it's not. It's a complete distraction from the things that we actually just need to do. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing with like again that story is that when we do all of those habits, when we're doing the cold showers and the 5 a.m. mornings and the things that all of these highly successful entrepreneurs have told us that they do and that's their secret sauce, right? It makes us feel successful as, right? We
Mm,
feel on top of the world while we're doing it because we're like in that energy of, oh well, like this is Russell Brunson is like the first name that popped in my head, which is super random. But let's
yeah.
just go with that. Like, oh, well, Russell Brunson does this. You know,
Yeah.
all of these really successful millionaire men usually are the ones that are like spruiking this stuff, right? They do
Yeah.
these things. Therefore, I feel so successful because I'm doing the same thing as them. Complete distraction from the things that you actually need to do. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also other things that I like the biggest patterns I see is really needing that external validation from everything. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
engagement from your socials. And if you're not getting engagement from your socials, you retreat and you're like, oh, I need to tweak my strategy. I need to change the way that I create content. I need to do this. I need to do that. And all of a sudden, you're not even posting anymore because you're
Yeah.
over here trying to figure out what's going on and solve all the problems.
Mm-hmm.
Um, External validation before they launch something new. You know, those people that have to go and ask, like they're talking to their mentor, they're talking to their business besties, they're talking to
Mm-hmm.
their man, their woman, whoever,
Yeah.
before they go and launch something because they want to make sure it's a good idea. Like they're the most
Yes.
common things that I see, but it's hidden in the sneakiest ways that sometimes you don't even know it's self-sabotage until all of a sudden you're burnt out or
Mm-hmm.
you're out of action, or you've just gotten so distracted on this tangent that has nothing to do with your business. And all of a sudden, great, you've got a new content social media strategy. But what if there actually wasn't a problem to begin with? What if
Yeah.
your subconscious created a problem because posting still doesn't actually feel safe to your brain? Usually
Yes.
that's what it is.
I think that is so fascinating. Like how you're saying self-sabotage can be so sneaky. And I didn't even think of it in a way where you're like you're launching something new and you're asking everyone for their opinions versus like that self-leadership, right? When
Yeah.
it's your specialization, your clients like they're on the back of your hand, like you understand your community, your audience, your industry, and being able to trust yourself in the fact that you know what you're talking about and the fact that this is what your audience needs from you. So that is so interesting in terms of like how that could be identified as self-sabotage as well. Um, it is so sneaky, isn't it? Self-sabotage.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So sneaky. And I want to say something on what you just said. Like, it is the deepest levels of self trust. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, and I see this again a lot in the space, where they're like, oh, the number one thing that creates success is having an unwavering mindset, like unwavering self belief. But I
Mm,
actually don't believe that. I believe that it's unwavering trust in yourself because every time you're faced with something new, it's like your brain is literally wired to throw up red flags and to try and keep you
mhm.
in your comfort zone, which means to keep you from experiencing anything new. That's how, like, we're wired to survive, not to thrive. And so your belief will waver when you are doing something new, when you are, especially if you're a trailblazer and you're doing things like that nobody else in your industry is doing, that's
Mhm.
going to trigger beliefs and feelings of like not unsafety, feelings of not being safe from your brain. But in those moments, what you can anchor into always is your deepest levels of self trust. And so that for me is like the
Yeah.
number one thing that you need to build on. Because
Wow.
like when your beliefs waver, you can always come back to yourself and be like, no, like I deeply trust myself. I know that these moves that I'm making are going to be the ones that really change things for me or set about like things that I just can't even imagine. I'm going to move anyway. It's kind of like the whole feel the fear and do it anyway, but it's more
Yeah.
like you're so anchored into yourself, you so deeply trust yourself that it doesn't actually matter what's going up, like going on in your brain. You're
Mhm.
just doing the thing.
Yes. I've been having this conversation a lot in my world right now, and it's like, you can have this like fear of whatever, of showing up, this fear of like being seen, this fear of, converting clients. That's self-sabotage, right? Your fear. But really choosing a mission or choosing something that overpowers that any single day, right? Like, you have the fear that the launch isn't going well, but what if it does, right? What if it is like your most
Mm.
successful launch? What if it's going to become your signature, offer that changes the whole trajectory of your business? And again, like this kind of goes back to that quote. It's kind of like you can be thrown like 99 compliments in one day, but that one negative, like, negative moment or comment really throws you off and you just totally dismiss those 99 compliments. So it's really interesting, like, again, that external validation in a way of even your own thoughts and what is good
Yeah.
enough for ourselves, right? So it's really fascinating to break it down in that way of all of these different things that kind of are self-sabotage, that kind of get in our way of making more money, of manifesting the specific life or reality we want to see within our life and business, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like, that I don't, it's not a meme, but it's like a graphic that goes around where there's two people digging for gold and one gives up and he's literally like 10
Yeah.
cent, like the next hit, he's hitting gold. And then the
Yeah.
other one's just like slowly puttering away, right? Be the one that's slowly puttering away. You don't know what move that you're going to make that's going to be the thing that
Mhm.
actually changes everything. And you can't know that. You know how everyone's like, surrender the how to the universe? Like, that's not your business.
Yeah.
That's what they mean. It's like you need to just move and do the things that you know to do, launch the programs that come through to you, create the content that comes to you because it's come to you for a reason.
Mhm.
How everything else is going to unfold is not your business. Your business is to do the things that you are intuitively guided to do. That's where the
Wow.
magic really happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
remember
that is sometimes the hardest thing of all.
Yeah, especially. I remember like thinking how much time and like self-sabotage and overthinking I would put into like my branding or like these perfect curated Instagram carousels and posts and such. And it was like my branding was very like blush pink, and so much has evolved like from almost 4 years ago. Now my branding is totally different, but it's so true. Like you just gotta move to evolve. Like you won't know to evolve if you don't move. And if you fail, and failure just really means like you're learning, right? One way or the other. And that equals evolution. So I feel like momentum, movement, just like really going for it and knowing that you trust your goal, you trust yourself to know what you need to do. And again, like for business success, from what our conversation I can gather today is that you just got to really trust yourself. You got to trust that you know what's best for yourself, and to do that is to become really self-aware, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, like I know that this is thrown around everywhere and it's so cliche, but it's cliche because it's so true. You
Mm-hmm.
actually have all the answers within you.
Yeah.
You think that you need all of these things outside of you and the perfect strategy and the perfect this and the perfect that. And yes, absolutely. Like I'm not here for the like energetics versus strategy debate. Like let's put that to
Mm-hmm.
bed. You need both. You need to be working on your energy, your mindset, and also actually have structure and strategy in your business.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing all of those things and then constantly, like what I find is that women love to invest in new programs and courses that are going to teach them this new fandangled thing that is going to change everything for them. And then they
Yeah.
leave disappointed because it didn't change everything. And the reason is you don't need that. You just need to start focusing on tapping into you. And I always like tap my heart because I feel like
Yes.
that's really where it is. It's like really dropping into out of your mind and like into your body and just really being like, okay, like what do I need in this moment? When was the last
Mm-hmm.
time, like if you're listening, when was the last time you stopped and you actually asked yourself, what do I need in this moment? Or just
Yeah.
ask like, okay, what is the next step forward? That's my secret sauce to everything. Literally asking yourself, what is the obvious next step? And
Mhm.
like that will change everything. If you just do the obvious next step every single day, your life will be infinitely different in the next 12 months. But we
Yeah.
don't do that because we've been conditioned to, again, look outside of ourselves, to go to the mentors, to go to the coaches, to go to the different strategists.
Hmm.
Start with you and then infuse the energy and the work from those experts that will quantum leap your whole business.
Wow. When
It's
you were sharing that,
that.
yeah, when you were sharing that, I just instantly thought of like, I just started visualizing, when you decorate a new space, right? Like your bedroom, you move into a new space, you're decorating everything, you're like, this is perfect, right? 1 month down the line, you're like, I don't love my bed linen. I'm gonna like redecorate that a little bit, right? Or I'm gonna move things around. Like, I don't love the feng shui or like the layout of this room. I know I've done this with my at home office like a million times already. And so
Yes.
even though in the moment it feels perfect, and that could be like the perfect strategy, the perfect branding, the perfect business infrastructure, but as time goes on, you're going to discover new things, right? So you kind of have to go like, yep, this is good enough for now. I know it's going to evolve. I know it's going to change, and I have to let go of that fear of change because that change is going to help you evolve. That change is going to help you grow and make things more efficient, make things more effective for yourself. So I kind of just pictured when you were sharing that, like this visualization of like me moving everything around all the time. Yeah.
I love that. And it's like you wouldn't think twice about it, right? Like you wouldn't think
No.
twice if you get an inkling like, oh, I don't think I like these sheets anymore. I'm going to go and buy these new sheets. Like you wouldn't think twice about it. But when it
Yeah.
comes to like trusting the guidance, your intuition, like the things that you feel really called to do, we
Hmm.
question that every single day. So
Yeah.
I really love that analogy because it gets to be that simple. Like it is as simple as choosing, okay, I'm going to do this thing that I feel called to do. Okay, I'm going to change my bed sheets. They shouldn't be
Yes.
any different. But the thing that you need to be aware of is, are you changing the bed sheets because you just simply want to change the bed sheets? Or do you have a list as long as my arm of all the reasons why you think you need to change the bed sheets because something is
Mm.
wrong with them and there is a problem? Because that's how self-sabotage sneaks in. It's like, oh, hang on,
Wow.
something's not right here. Oh, maybe I need to change my bed sheets. Maybe it's because they're not soft enough. Maybe it's the color. Do you know what I mean? Like we need to be able
Yes.
to know the difference between, are we doing this because we're called, or is our brain playing tricks on us again? And again,
Yeah.
that's like when you're in your body and when you're aware of your own patterns and you can really feel it, you'll know. Like
Hmm.
it's people always are like, Jaimee, what, how do I know the difference? And I'm like, you will know. Like when you have built the relationship with yourself and the self-awareness, you will
Hmm.
just know. And then you're going to have the trust to know that what you're feeling is true for you. And then you get to move with that.
Yes, I love our conversation today. I feel like we really broke a lot of things down of, you know, to those who are listening in who might be feeling like that inkling of like something's not right in my business, or like I feel like nothing is going right now, and I want you guys to really listen to this and really reflect on yourself and how you're feeling. Yeah, I loved our conversation today. I'd love for you to share with those who are tuning in like where they can find you, how they can work with you, or what's kind of happening in your world right now.
I have so much happening in my world right now. So you will find me hanging out on Instagram at Jaimee Lee White. I'm also on TikTok and I am on YouTube. That is brand new. So I did have a podcast, which you can still find. It's on Air with Jaimee. There's so much like really great content there. But if you listen to my the last episode, you'll understand why I no longer have a podcast and I'm going to be on YouTube. But I also would love to share with you, I created a free quiz to meet and master your inner saboteur. So I'll share the link, and basically what it is, like I've literally created a quiz to help you understand who she is, but in a really fun way, because I think that this work can become so serious and basically make you leave feeling like absolute like trash. And that's not what I want. So it's like really quirky, really fun, but you'll actually understand your main inner saboteur archetype because there's lots of different ways this shows up. And then in the email sequence afterwards, I've created a recode, which is a reprogramming audio, the work that I do with my clients, so that you can start to really rewire that sabotaging pattern. So I will give you the link for that if anyone wants to do my quiz, meet your inner saboteur, and then of course begin to reprogram her so that you can do more of the things that like you're here to do.
Incredible. I will definitely attach everything, your links in the show notes. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really loved our conversation today, and I've learned so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was beautiful.
Amazing.